Hello and welcome to the Rotherham Advertiser SportsChat Podcast. Joining me around the table is Miller's writer David Beddows. Hello. And news editor Michael Upton.
Good morning.
Gentlemen, it seems like a case of one step forward, two steps back on Saturday with the defeat to Preston at home. Dave, the old defensive troubles of Alan Stubbs' era seem to come back to haunt new manager Kenny Jackett.
That is, I mean, it was a surprise, wasn't it, in a way? I mean, this was a match we went down to, maybe a few of us had a feeling it might turn on Saturday, particularly after, that decent showing at Ipswich, but, the old habits were there in abundance, weren't they? Not tracking runners, not pressing the ball, not being decisive enough in the 18-yard box. All the defensive frailties we've seen were back, for all to see. And Preston took full advantage. And to be fair, could have had, 2 or 3 more goals.
The first 2 games of Kenny Jackett's reign, there seemed to be a marked improvement in organisation, team shape, all the things that you'd expect Kenny Jackett to come in and do. And then on Saturday, all that seemed to be gone again. Is it a case that the new manager effect is wearing off and now we're back to the same players and ultimately the same quality in the team?
I don't know about new manager effect wearing off. It's, these problems seem to be ingrained in the players, aren't they? These are deep-seated problems that, Alan Stubbs got right, and that it's going to take Kenny Jackett time to put right. This is a months and months job, not a week's job. Putting these, getting some shape to this team and some resilience to it, because Preston didn't really have to play too well to win that game.
Beautifully putting it right, Dave. Was Alan Stubbs trying to put it right? Is the problem not with the managers, but with the players? It's the whole you say it's a whole 1 step forward, 2 steps back thing. I feel like when we're going to change the record, I just don't think the players are overall. I don't think the players in this squad are championship quality.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it?
I think they were left shopping at Pound Stretcher and Aldi when all the championship big clubs had gone for the Sainsbury's and Waitrose players. But the manager they had came in too late to get good players and doesn't have the reputation to bring them in.
But is this not the issue, the fact that who signed these players? Is it the club's fault? Is it Alan Stubbs' fault? Who ultimately brought these players in, and if they're not good enough for the Championship? Not saying they won't be in 2-3 years' time or they won't progress or improve, but at this moment in time, Dave, where does the book lie?
Well, I think it's been a cumulative effect, hasn't it, over the last year, 18 months. We were late going to market this summer for players, weren't we, after the Neil Warnock turnover. And Alan Stubbs came in, and there was quite a long delay before we started seeing fresh faces. They invested in a lot of youth, and as I said before, with youth and with potential comes risk. There's a risk with these players. It looks like with 1 or 2 of them it's a year too soon. There's that. Don't forget about people like Broadfoot missing and Adiemi missing, who would have figured. As regards shopping at Aldi, we've always had to shop in the market we shop at, but it's about getting players playing to the maximum or beyond it, like Neil Warnock did.
Michael, Preston came and masterclass Rotherham really in organisation and ability and teamwork. And last season they finished in mid-table as well following the promotion. Are they the model that maybe Rotherham should have gone down a similar line of getting promoted, establishing themselves as a championship team, not trying to run before they can walk, and becoming that solid championship outfit?
I'm not sure that we can say that Rotherham ever tried to run before they walked in this division. It's not like Tony's thrown millions of pounds at lots of players. In a way, he's cut his cloth accordingly to be a lower level championship side, to do what they could do to stay up. And then we've heard all these lofty comments about we may extend the stadium in the future, but it comes down to the fact that you need a core, solid team within the squad. And I think you would look at that squad and say you'd struggle to pick more than 4 or 5 on your first team, because it's about proving yourself, not just at previous clubs but at this club, proving you're up to it. And unfortunately it's a constant firefighting problem. You talked about the new manager effect before. That new manager effect resulted in a 1-0 home defeat followed by a 2-2 away draw that included conceding a late goal, didn't it?
But both games conceded a late goal.
In those instances, so we're not looking here at a massive bounce, are we? Let's face it.
No, but there was an improvement in performances.
But then when we're talking about Alan Stubbs was talking about performances.
But the performances were never there, were they?
And there weren't any results. And unfortunately, the same is true of King Kenny.
So Dave, where's it gone wrong then? Because last week at Ipswich we were talking about Will Vokes having his best game in a Rotherham shirt, and then on Saturday he was well out of his depth. We've seen Dominic Ball this season play really well and look like he's stepping up to the responsibility. And on Saturday he was miles off. John Taylor ineffective. Dexter Blackstock barely even on the pitch. So what's happening? Why is there these big swings between this optimistic performance against Ipswich, where things are looking like they're going in the right direction, to heads in hands again on Saturday? Why is that happening?
Well, ain't that the sign of players who are struggling or in the process of getting to grips with the Championship? You don't get that consistency that you get with Championship thoroughbreds. This is the risk we're taking. And it's, I say, these problems are deep-seated, they're going to take time to work out, and have we got the time? 30 games left. So it's time when we need to start being wins together, not unbeaten runs. We're calling for wins now. It's sort of the defence.
The Championship clock's ticking down, Michael, now, and it's gone from 32 games to 31. Now we're down to 30 games of the season. And at what point does Kenny Jackett abandon what he's trying to do and go for something else, try and stern up this Rotherham team? He came in and said 4-4-2 could give them better defensive setup because the strikers have pushed the defence more, not allowing the opposition defence to play out. When does he maybe go to 5 at the back or 5-man midfield? We saw it in the second half, didn't we, Dave, on Saturday? What do you think, Michael?
Well, again, that's a difficulty because we've said with the Alan Stubbs reign that there were times he packed the midfield, played 4-5-1, 4-4-1-1 with his Izzy just in the hole. And that didn't give him the defensive shape and the solidity either. I think it comes down to whether or not there's enough leaders in the side, whether or not, for all his consistency in earlier games, Dominic Ball can inspire others by throwing his head in where it's required, whether or not we can scrap a couple of goals. But you have to feel for Danny Ward. He's having the season of his life and he doesn't get the service, and it will still ultimately come down to whether or not he can get any further support from the midfield. I think you've got to be hard to beat and you've got to get your points in singles. But unfortunately, if he's set up defensively and he concedes an early goal, as has also happened in a lot of games, then you're laying yourself open to having to constantly play catch up. I think they need to go on the offensive. I don't think they've been on the offensive quite enough. Whether or not they have the players to do that is a different question. Yeah,
I mean, do you need strength in numbers in that midfield and play 5, in there like Neil Warnock did last season, that Stubbs did for a while, but we're still susceptible, weren't we? We're still brittle. Kenny Jackett's gone with a 4-4-2. He says he's going to stick with it. It needs to be a good 4 in the middle, doesn't it, if you're going to play that way?
Well, you look at maybe having Frecklington and Adeyemi in there over Ball and Vokes, and suddenly you look like you've got a much stronger, experienced Championship midfield, don't you?
Well, that's it. I mean, and we're still looking for a strongest 11. I think it's there, but it's not jumped out, and he's not been able to get it on the field regularly yet. But neither did Alan Stubbs either. So
it ultimately comes down to the fact that the squad isn't really big enough, and the players in that squad, on average, aren't really quite good enough. There will come a point. I mean, unfortunately, we're looking at a situation where we're already a little bit adrift. There will come a point where it becomes complete panic stations. I know it's too early to talk about another change of manager because I don't think the manager's the problem. But there's a transfer window, and Tony's going to have to decide whether or not he's going to spend big.
Well, that leads me on.
Because if you go down, are Rotherham ready to be a League One club?
Well, this leads me nicely on. Some fans saying, forget this season, forget this transfer window, build for League One next season, and make sure that you're going into it the best way possible. Dave, you're sniggering at that.
I am, because this place in the Championship were too hard earned to give up on it just after Bonfire Night. There's a window coming up, Mike's pointing about players, and we've also got the task now of persuading players to come to a bottom of the league club, which is a task in itself. But Kenny Jackett's got a lot of contacts. He's been in the game a long time, and we need to hope he can unearth 2 or 3 gems who are going to make a big difference.
Yeah, it's very rare that a club that's relegated is able to bounce straight back up again. It happens much more often with the Premier League because they get parachute payments. But the examples of clubs going down and then instantly popping back up into the Championship are not.
Well, look at Sheffield United, are far
unbelievably rare. I mean, the old adage is that the Championship is a difficult league to get out of. Well, it depends which way you're going. It's very easy to get out of downwards. It's very difficult to get back into. League, I would say that competitively, League One is full of sides that have been relegated and stagnated and maybe even gone even
Charlton,
further,
Sheffield United,
even further.
Coventry.
Look at Bradford, even gone further down and sunk through the divisions. You don't want to be a Wigan or a Sheffield United who've got to try and rebuild and scrap back up again. I mean, unfortunately, I think we knew in 2014, for all the jubilance and the excitement of that amazing late run in the promotion season, that it was going to be a hard slog every year. We're not looking at a side where, like a Bournemouth, where there's constant bankrolling of very of 8-figure, 7-figure players every now and then. You're gonna have to kind of cut your cloth. The only way Rotherham are going to remain an established Championship club is if they have the income to ensure that there's investment in players.
We're talking about January already, but there's still a lot of points to play for before January, isn't there, Dave? I mean, it's all well and good looking forward and hoping that Kenny can pull a rabbit out of the hat, but there's still a lot of points to play for, and he has to utilise this squad to get as many points as possible before then. Because if they're 10 or 12 points adrift come January, surely there's not much point.
It has to be an absolute maximum of 8, and doesn't it, by Christmas, ideally down to 4, 5, 6. It's a weird time because there's only 2 more matches this month and then a rush of something like 6 in December. So it is a chance that to go move the table, to stack some points. And with Burton to play twice, Wigan, between now and the end of the year is going to be important to set ourselves up to have a go in the second half of the season. I mean, otherwise, if it's getting up to 10 or 12, it's over before it's begun, isn't it?
I just want to talk about the fans momentarily, just before we wrap it up here. The fans in Rotherham tend to react to some sign of hope and optimism. They want something to believe in and something to get behind ultimately. And you've seen it over the years as well as I have, that Steve Evans can come in and give you something to get behind. Neil Warnock can come in and give you something to get behind. And I fully believe as well that Kenny Jackett can come in and give you something to get behind, whatever league you're in. But at the minute, on the back of the Stubbs era and with the performance on Saturday, there's a certain feeling of deflation, isn't there, with the fans, that they feel that hope is gone.
Well, I think you can't lay that at Kenny Jackett's door, can you? This is a team that's conceded 38 goals in 16 league games. It's won 1 game in the Championship since April. It had taken 10 points from 60 going into Saturday's game. They're the facts, they're the depressing facts. So, again, it's been a cumulative effect. We've got to stay united somehow. We've got to get behind the team because, Rotherham need every ounce of help they can get.
And it's that difficult combination of defensive solidity and some kind of attacking potency. All it would take is a 1-0 win.
Nil.
because that would show that, I mean, not even like a 4-3 or something. In a way, if you have a 4-3, then that could be seen as a freak result.
And then defensive things are still there.
Because, I think any manager who wins 4-3 will probably be going home, looking at the DVD and see what happened in the defence. And, Dave hasn't brought out, but I think you probably find there's only one or possibly 2 clean sheets in that entire run this season, isn't it?
This season's only been 1
that
clean
was
sheet.
The one
and that was
against Bristol City when they got Brentford, they got absolutely battered.
And I think the undercurrent of them stats I've just reeled off to you is that Rotherham haven't had a chance to build any momentum through that. I mean, let's think, if they had held on at Ipswich last Saturday, instead of being caught out by a worldie off the last kick, how different the mood would have been on Saturday at the New York. And maybe they'd have had that momentum to push on and get a result. They were very deflated. They've not had that chance to get a win behind them.
There's an element of that, though, Dave. You said to me last week it was a worldie. It was a good strike from McGoldrick for a very long way out. And you have to wonder, where the hell is the midfield? Pressing out, and that ball comes out.
I think the fact that the confidence is so low and they were 2-1 up with minutes remaining, everyone had just dropped back, hadn't they? They weren't cared what were happening 30 yards out as long as nothing was happening 18 yards out.
It was kind of fighting every last ditch, wasn't it? And 5 minutes into injury time, a side that is has some momentum, is on a run, as you say, will have composure to see a game like that out by getting hold of the ball, keeping possession and killing the game. When you've not won for weeks on end and you wonder when your next week's going to be, you do drop deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's what happened then. But that you do kind of feel that moment could have that game could have been a turning point, and now Kenny Jackett's going to find another turning point.
Yeah, yes.
Because it's going to come soon. Because as he said, we're still talking after Christmas about double figures to safety. Then it's going to get a lot harder.
I mean, I saw on the highlights of the weekend some awful defending in the Championship and some poor goalkeeping as well, and some cheap goals gives us to sides. Again, odd luck story. I've not seen the Millers gifted many cheap goals in the last game or two. So if you've not had any luck, if near the top of the league, I dare say the Goldrich shot last week might have gone for a throw-in or a goal kick. It's just what happens when you're at the bottom.
But this is what I'm saying, Dave. You've got to. It's the old buying a ticket thing. If you don't push forward and you don't try and make chances, then you don't get those lucky breaks. Just think about that. I think it was the Reading goal we saw a couple of weeks ago that bounced off about 4 different players, and it could have been cleared 2 or 3 times. It was Huddersfield, wasn't it? It could have been cleared 2 or 3 times. And if you're in the opposition box, making them make those decisions, making them make those mistakes, you've got more chance of lucky break. You can't get a lucky break in your own half when it comes to scoring a goal. And I think Kenny Jackett's got to look at what he's got in attacking terms and throw some eggs in that basket.
Well, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Peter Odemwingie after his second half display. One of the very few bright sparks, Dave, just to wrap up quickly. And looks like he has really got that quality on the ball. Set up Richard Wood's goal with a pinpoint cross. Looks like he has got that little bit of quality that could unlock a defence.
Yeah, it does. Dexter Blackstock was ineffective, weren't he? We were hooked at half time. And he staked to claim that I'll be surprised if he doesn't start at Derby in a week's time.
Well, with the international break here, Kenny Jackett's got a good few weeks on the training ground with his players to try and shore up them defensive problems. If you'd like to join in with anything that we've spoke about today, then you can by tweeting us at RodTiserSport. Make sure you pick up the paper on Friday for all the reaction from last week's game, as well as look forward into the international break. And also make sure you check the website every Monday for reaction and analysis from the Saturday's game before. Thank you very much for listening.